Hello there everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now a question that I get asked a lot when it comes to anything should you pull related or when I was recommending characters weekly, things like that, is how many ingots a character needs in order to succeed within chaos or hard content, dimensions and anything like that. And generally speaking, the answer is that a character pretty much usually requires 3 ingots in order to really shine and be the best that they can be. However, there are a lot of characters out there that can work really well without any ingots at all, and I wanted to make a video that highlighted a bunch of those characters so that those people who are struggling with ingots in general or ingot management, trying to keep on top of having as many ingots as possible, certainly with the next few months being as strict as they are on ingots, to highlight some of those characters so that if you're not sure about whether you can afford to not spend ingots on a character or not, then we have some budget heroes so that we can go through the rest of the game and have characters that can take on this high level content without having to invest quite so heavily into them. Now before we get started on highlighting some of these characters, of course I would like to invite you to take a look at the social media links in the description box below, including my Twitter, my Twitch and my Discord. Now on Twitch, we've actually got a really interesting thing coming up on Sunday where I'll be doing a 12-hour stream with Omnia and I'll be able to put my skills to use less is more to the test, because I'm going to be doing a 12-hour stream for Omnia on a brand new account that involves 0 pulls whatsoever. So it'll be a case of seeing how far we can get without actually pulling on any banners whatsoever, so therefore being able to save up loads and loads and loads of gems, but going through with just 15 CP equipment from lost chapters, things like that. So it'd be really cool if you guys could turn up for that one, and then that way we can play through the game from the beginning together. That'd be really awesome. And of course, always with Patreon, I will always shout out a random patron every time I release a video to show my thanks to everyone who comes and supports the channel further. And today that supporter is going to be Sutiban, who has been a huge supporter of the channel for a little while now, so a massive thank you to you. As a matter of fact, Suti was one of the people that really wanted this stream to happen, so I wanted to make sure that I gave a big shout out to him. And obviously if you'd like a bespoke title card made for you just like Suti has here, then definitely take a look at the link in the description box for Patreon. Now I am using Dissidia DB as my point of information here for anything to do with the budget heroes, so definitely go and check that website out, as well as the Tombury Troop for all of their massively helpful infographics, and of course don't forget to check out all of the other social media people and content creators there are out there for Omnia, as they all appreciate your support just as much as me. Now the first character that I want to talk about here is going to be Rem. Now Rem's actually live on a banner right now, so if you happen to get her for free, then fantastic, this is going to be a great character for you. And Rem, like I described Porum as earlier in the week, is very much what I like to call a silent partner. Now Selfie comes under this as well, because what I mean by that is that they tend to serve as just an extra party member, like you're running a duo party plus Rem/Selfie/Porum, because what they do is they tend to fulfill their function just by kind of being there, and Rem is a massive example of that. Because of swap turns, which is the main thing you're actually using her for, this is actually a fine character to use 0 ingots on, because what you actually get out of her is just more stats. When it comes to her being able to use Siphon Delta regularly, it's still really fast casting, it still gives her a free use of swap turns, you'll cure the following turn, and while if she had 3 ingots you'd get battery capabilities out of Siphon Delta, it's not quite as big a deal as it would be for other characters. Something I will say here is that with all of the characters I mention here, of course they're all going to definitely be stronger when they have 3 ingots, but they work functionally and they keep their core mechanics with just a book and no ingots whatsoever. So these are going to be characters that will work very well for you on a budget. Now Rem, like I said, she can still function perfectly well because she still has access to swap turns and the free turns from Siphon Delta, or the free skill uses from Siphon Delta. So really, you're getting everything that you would want out of her without actually having to spend ingots at all. The next character that I want to look at is Warrior of Light. Now, Warrior of Light's Shining Wave is kind of useful, and personally, I actually did put an ingot into Warrior of Light, but you really don't need to. The reason you take Warrior of Light isn't Shining Wave. The reason you take him is his heavy shields, and he gets those from his 15 and 35 CP abilities. So there's not a huge amount of reason to use Warrior of Light with 3 ingots, because all you're really getting out of it is slightly more stats, and you'll get a little bit more Brave Overflow on Shining Wave, but Warrior of Light's not a damage dealer, so it's not really the reason you take him in the first place. You still get 150% Brave Overflow with 0 ingots anyway, so you're still getting all those really strong shields. I've used Warrior of Light in many events with no ingots and 1 ingot, and it's honestly been absolutely fine. So if you are worried about your defenses, then taking Warrior of Light with 0 ingots will function absolutely perfectly. As a matter of fact, I took him to Dimensions End 2 or 3, and he was absolutely fantastic. In fact, he works very well in a lot of Dimensions End with no ingots whatsoever, because the only thing that you're really going to be getting out of ingots when it comes to Warrior of Light are more stats and more damage, which isn't the reason that you're taking Warrior of Light in the first place. Next on the list is going to be Vanille. Now, a lot of players actually want Vanille EX, and they do tend to want to give 3 ingots to Vanille because they generally want the sphere that comes out of her for doing so, which allows dispelling a debuff every time you break a unit, so it's really powerful for characters like Aranea and Vayne. However, Vanille herself works really well without any ingots at all and with just a book. The reason for that is because despite the fact that she gets some really nice extras out of her ingot buffs, she actually fulfills her primary function without them. Assassination's primary function is to drain bravery after your opponent's taken their turn, so it's a trap in a very similar vein to Emperor, and she still gets that. As a matter of fact, she gets it AoE from just giving a book to her. So that's a frame debuff that's really strong, and she's still going to get that. She can still dispel very, very frequently just by using the skill Dispel, so she doesn't actually need to remove buffs from her targets by using Assassination. She can do it whenever she wants, and she still has arguably one of the strongest defense down debuffs in the game through Deprotect. So honestly, the fact that you get all of that from her kit and she still batteries really well while you're doing these things, so as long as you have some way of regenerating HP, Vanille is actually a very strong unit for you to take, simply on the back of the fact that her debuffs are really strong, she can still dispel whenever she wants, and she's got the battery capabilities, and she has the trap stuff going on for her, so she's still very strong with just a book and no ingots. Now, this is a character I think that there are a few players out there that might disagree with me on. However, I think that Duluth actually works very well without any ingots at all as well. Now, the reason I say that some people might disagree is that with 3 ingots, he actually does get quite a lot out of his kit. He gets an HP attack ++, which does significantly more damage than his regular HP+, and it raises party bravery based on the damage he deals with batteries, and he also gets a much stronger version of Dual Wield Blade Blitz, which is his EX attack. However, again, in a similar way to things like Vanille and Warrior of Light, you're not really taking Duluth for damage. You're taking him to be an evasion tank, and he does that job still extremely well with no ingots. He doesn't get no action delay on the first turn, so he doesn't get to use cover twice so that he gets to cover plus straight away or use cover blade block in quick succession. But he still gets to use them, and he still gets a decently powerful attack in Dual Wield Blade Blitz, and he's still going to counter everything. He's still going to perform the function that he needs to very well. And as a matter of fact, for Dimensions End 5, I did a duo run with Duluth with no ingots and Balthea, and it worked perfectly. It was really good, and I managed to get rid of everything as much as I needed to, and I got the score, got the perfect, got everything I needed, and I used Duluth with 0 ingots. He's actually a very powerful character, but he's not there to deal damage. If you can get more damage out of him, fantastic. If you have the spare ingots, it's not an unworthy investment for you to invest in Duluth. But if you don't have the ingots available to you, then taking Duluth with 0 ingots actually functions very well as well. Now, many of the characters on this list are going to be classed under support or tank or brave battery or something like that. There are very few damage dealers that work particularly well when it comes to having no ingots, and the reason for that is because they want their stats increased dramatically or as high as possible in order for you to get the most out of them. However, that doesn't mean that no characters work without ingots. As a matter of fact, Yuri is actually a very strong character with 0 ingots, and the reason for that is because his Clavation Sword attack still does 100% AoE damage, it still hits really quite hard, he's still going to get the Chelinka buff out of it, and you're still getting that really huge HP and Brave regen and Brave overflow from that buff, which means that Yuri is still a valuable team player even without the ingots and the additional stats. Because all you actually get from his ingot buffs are slightly stronger or a bigger modifier on Clavation Sword itself, starting with Chelinka's Prayer and the large max Brave up, which does mean that you're going to want to use Relic Crystal as your first attack before you actually do anything else, because Yuri without Chelinka's Prayer does not so great things to himself if he doesn't have it, so you need to get that buff straight away. But realistically, they are skills that you would have been using anyway in order to charge his EX, and it stays at the same speed, so you're still going to be using the same number of skills as you would have been for Yuri in order to get to his EX, and then past that point it's still the same charge rate, so you still have the same rotation with Yuri even if he has 0 ingots instead of 3. Would he be better with 3? Yes, he would. But of course, if you want a character that can still dish out a really strong amount of damage without having to invest quite so heavily into him, then Yuri might be a good choice for you. Now here's a character that a lot of people are looking forward to in order to get his EX Plus and get his realization at the end of May, and that's Ramza. Now Ramza is extremely strong with 3 ingots, of course. He gets the ability to change his triple break to triple break plus, triple break plus plus, and finally triple break plus plus plus, where it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And however, you don't actually need to do that if you don't want to, because the best thing that you actually get out of triple break or innovate, whether you use just a book, is the fact that it becomes an AoE attack. It inflicts 50% splash damage on all enemies and inflicts the debuff innovate or triple break on all enemies, so it's actually going to reduce the stats of everyone on the field. He gets stronger turns on brave attack, stronger moves from brave attack plus 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 and HP attack plus plus plus, and he still doesn't get to use turns up when he uses them, which is really strong, because that's the main thing that Ramza's good for, is charging himself up to a point where he becomes an absolute monster, just dealing HP attack plus plus plus, now with more brave hits and stronger attacks, and it's got brave overflow and things like that, and it's still not taking up turns, so you can just keep spamming it, and then you can still get access to innovate and it hit everyone on the board and reduce all of their stats. So he's actually able to function exactly out as you would normally without ingots at all. The thing that you get out of ingots is the fact that you get more damage, more brave overflow, more splash damage, and you actually get a little bit more bravery back, like refunded when you attack with it. So it is really strong with 3 ingots. But if you're starved for them, then Ramza is a character that a lot of people have because he is featured on multiple banners. And if you're going after Jack at the end of the month and you get Ramza and you're like, oh, I don't have the ingots for him, then maybe consider just giving him a book. Character a lot of people pulled for a couple of months ago, including myself, and I actually found that she worked very well with 0 ingots, is actually Lulu. Now, Lulu, even with 3 ingots, isn't the greatest damage dealer in the world. But because all you really get out of 3 ingots for her is more damage, and the fact that she can get her 5 stacks of Doll Master a little bit quicker, really you can still use her at 0 out of 3 ingots. But, giving her a book means that you just get a stronger version of Ferragher. You might not even need to use a book at all. You could just use it as a base EX, because what you actually want out of Lulu is the Imperil and the Enchant, which she does with her basic kit. You don't need to use her EX, certainly not at 3 ingots, in order to get the most out of her. You could argue the fact that like Onion Knight could do a similar thing, but I think Onion Knight actually benefits from his ingots a lot more because of the fact that he gets his EX charged up, he gets the turns quicker, whereas Lulu doesn't get any of that, even with 3 ingots. So Lulu has the ability to do the Enchant and Imperil thing, so she's actually still benefiting the team to a great extent if the enemy is able to be imperiled in that way, without actually having to put any ingots into her at all, because as you can see here, all you're getting out of her is more stats, and she doesn't actually need them to function properly. Now this is a character that, again, may be a little bit on the controversial side, just because his 3 ingots are actually very strong, and the things he gets out of them do actually help him quite a lot. But Paladin Cecil actually does function very well without ingots, as long as you change his role slightly. Now, Cecil is very much a jack of all trades. He does a little bit of everything, he does some good damage, he has Enchant Imperil, he has healing, he has batteries, he has auras, he has a little bit of everything, but he doesn't hugely excel in any of them. However, as long as what you're after from him is the Enchant Imperil, the healing, the auras, the batteries, he can still do all of that stuff without any ingots at all. The main thing that you want from his 3 out of 3 is the fact that Paladin Force itself becomes stronger, and he starts with it, which is a big deal. However, if you want him primarily as a support character, or if he's a character that you want because you're starved for ingots and you still want to get use out of him, he can function perfectly fine in Chaos events, in some Dimensions End, without ingots. He does actually still get his 0 out of 3 Aura, which is the Night Splitting Radiance, which still raises your party's max bravery and attack. Now obviously when it comes to a lot of these characters, when I say they function really well at 0 out of 3, that doesn't mean that you can realistically take a whole team of 0 out of 3s and perform every event. You're going to need to spend your ingots somewhere. But if you have a lot of options available to you and you're like, oh my god, I don't know where to spend these, then taking certain options away from yourself and going, actually this character could work pretty well at 0 out of 3, they're not benefiting as much from the 3 out of 3 as another character would, then it might help you to manage your resources and give them elsewhere. Now this is an interesting character that will come along actually this week, or the week of this video being made, if you're going back to watching this later, but it will come along with Caius's event. Now Knoll is a character that was extremely popular when his EX first arrived because his kit was so loaded, he had rebreak, he had the ability to not consume ability uses, he ignored defense on all of his stuff, and he still gets all that with his EX realization. He doesn't actually gain all that much from his EX realization, so you don't have to give him everything for it. If you give him a book, then he gets a little bit of Brave Overflow on all of his skills because it's an additional effect to his main buff, which is actually very strong. But all you really get, you don't get any attack out of his Ingot buffs because he already has one of the highest base attacks, if not the highest base attack in the entire game, so he doesn't actually need it. But he gets more attack power out of Meteor Javelin, which is still pretty hard hitting already. And if you've got the right team composition to lower their defenses, getting some extra potencies on Meteor Javelin is really nice, but it's not necessarily needed. The only thing you're not going to get is the Fear Siphon Plus, where you're going to get like a free turn if you break somebody with it, and then that way you can kind of manipulate turns a little bit more easily with him. But he can still do all of that stuff even without 3 ingots. He gets like anything that where you start with buffs is also very nice because it means you're not consuming abilities to gain those buffs. But he's going to get them anyway because you're going to be using those abilities, and he's still going to hit like a bus because his attack is that high. If you're using him alongside characters that give him strong attack auras, his Meteor Javelin still ignores defense, so it's still going to hit really, really hard. So honestly, if you're looking at a character to kind of go, like, for the near future, and you're pulling for Caius and you get Knoll along the way, then Knoll actually works pretty well with no ingots at all. Now, a character that a lot of players know that I really enjoy in this game, and I actually did purple my one of these, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, is Hope. Now, Hope came out fairly recently on a very strong banner, which is still live while this video is being made. But when you give him just a book and no ingots, he still gets the most important things to his kit, which is the ability to deal a decent amount of damage. He still gets Brutal Sanction and Retributive Blast. Now, it's a little bit sucky that you don't get the Aura, Max Brave and Attack buff, so if you wanted to put a single ingot into him, then you could get away with that as well. But he can work with 0 out of 3, just because his primary kit is just that strong. Last Resort will still deal 100% AoE damage to all enemies. You'll still get the ability to manipulate your own turn really well with Shell and Protect. You'll still get all those defensive buffs, you'll still get all the offensive buffs out of him. He's still a really strong support character. Like I said, the majority of characters that work really well with no ingots are going to be support characters because you don't need them to be dealing damage like a damage dealer would. If they can deal damage like Hope can, and the reason that I purpled Hope is because I wanted damage out of him, and you do get that, you don't have to give as many ingots to him as you need to because he still gets his full kit without them. You could also argue this with Penelo, but Penelo works best with 1 ingot rather than 0, or she can work with 0, but she definitely wants at least 1, which is why I've not given a feature to her on this list. But at the end of the video I will mention a few characters that also work really well with a single ingot. But if you've recently pulled Hope and you're looking for a character that you can run on a budget, he might be your guy. Running along with this trend of characters who work best off of the mechanics of their kit and not the damage that they deal is going to be Yuffie. Now, Yuffie is primarily taken into a team because of her ability to throw debuffs back at her opponent and therefore take them off yourself, but she also has a really strong debuff in her EX attack with Gauntlet that makes it so that they cannot gain buffs, the no cheating buff. It's a really, really strong debuff that works very well despite the fact that she doesn't actually need ingots in order to get them. When you put ingots into Yuffie's EX, she gets more stats, she starts with her buffs from her EX and her other attacks, and she gets a better bravery attack and a better HP attack. Which, yes, it would be nice, but they aren't as needed for Yuffie because she's a techie character. She's not there to deal just 99999s all across the board. Taking a character that does need to deal a lot of damage won't work nearly as well without ingots. So if you're able to kind of redistribute the ingots you plan to spend onto characters that need the higher stats, rather than the mechanics of their kit, then that's going to be the key to kind of saving Ingots where possible. But Yuffie is actually a great character. I've used Yuffie numerous times in various events with only 0 out of 3. In fact, for a while I was using her with just her base EX because I didn't feel I needed the max Brave Overflow limit on Gauntlet, even though it was quite nice to have. But I put a book into her because I needed a nugget and I needed the ingot, so I kind of just gave it to her, and I don't regret it. So if you're looking for a character that's techie, that's fun, that's quirky, that has a unique kit, then Yuffie might be the one to look at. Now, there's a lot of content creators and influencers within the Omnia community that will kind of give people advice when it comes to this particular character, and this character is actually a great pick for 0 out of 3, and that's Steiner. There's a good reason why this character is recommended for 0 out of 3. It's because his kit is a damage-dealing kit that doesn't revolve around his own stats pretty much at all, because when you use Stock Break, his bravery is raised by your party's max bravery before you go in for it. So it also still buffs all your party when you actually just have a book on him and no ingots at all. It still has splash damage, it still has Man Eater, it's still going to give him his HP attack ++ and his bravery attack ++. He gets everything he really needs from 0 out of 3. What he does get with more ingots is the ability to deal more damage because he gets more hits on Stock Break, but because you're raising bravery beforehand, this may be less necessary for him. He starts with Captain the Pluto Knights, but he still gets that buff which raises your party's max bravery just by using Stock Break, so it's not as imperative to start with it. And because it's quite fast casting as well, it means that he can still inflict the really nice attack debuffs. He's going to get like a good amount of damage. You could easily take him to any event that certainly revolves around humanoid characters, so Dimensions End 5 for example, so anything with mannequins, then Steiner will still do a lot of damage without any ingots at all. So while most characters on this list are going to be support characters, tanks, things like that, there are a few damage dealers like Yuri, Paladin Cecil and Steiner that actually still work pretty well with no ingots. Now, the last character that I'm going to discuss in this video actually isn't out for a little while yet, but I thought it'd be nice to include somebody that people can look forward to if they wanted somebody to pull for that doesn't necessarily need 3 ingots, and that's because she's extremely powerful, and it's Arciella. Now, Arciella, the reason she doesn't necessarily need 3 ingots is because she doesn't actually necessarily need an EX at all. She's actually just very, very strong on her base kit alone. Her whole kit revolves around auras and debuffing auras, so raising stats. She also provides a fast cast, which is like a brave refund. So whenever your party does an HP attack, they regenerate out of 0 bravery back to their initial bravery much, much faster. And that's actually really, really strong. So having that, and then also the fact that her EX is a fast casting AoE brave HP damage. It's split HP damage, but you know, she's got to have a problem somewhere. But it's still really strong, and all you actually get out of that is a buff that gives party brave regen, but it's still an aura, so it's really handy to have. If you give her a book, it makes it so that the Necrul's Vengeance does more damage, which is nice for a fast casting EX attack, but what you get for the 3 ingots aren't nearly as important. It raises her stats, it makes it so that her first turn doesn't consume ability uses, and she doesn't get any turn delay on that, which is really nice. But it's not as mandatory for her because really you just want her auras to last as long as possible and her deal damage on the side. Think similarly to Aphmau. She works very similarly to her, but she just does so much support capabilities in so many unique ways. She has a speed down aura in a very similar vein to Sephiroth. She just kind of comes in this all-encompassing support package that makes her a really powerful character. And equally, she's one that doesn't actually need ingots in order to function. She's just a very strong character. Now, while I've spoken about characters that work really well with 0 ingots at all, there are a few characters that actually work really well with 1 ingot, and you don't have to go the whole way into the weapon in order to maximize their efficiency. And I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail about those characters, but characters that you might want to look out for are anyone that can either get their strongest version of their HP attack with 1 ingot, or they get a party aura with 1 ingot, something like that, or they just get significant buffs and it's not just a straight stat buff out of their single ingot will tend to work really well. Some examples of this will include Pinello, who makes it so that she doesn't consume an ability use on the first turn and she gets a bit of Brave Overflow on all of her stuff. You get Rosa, who gets her a party-wide aura for attack and max brave really quickly. Like, she gets it from on top of anything else she does when she uses her EX. You have Lilith, who gets her HP plus really fast. It's probably the main reason you would want to give her an ingot, so that she's able to do something other than just use skills every turn, because you need to think of longevity when you're going into Chaos or Dimension's End or anything like that. And then lastly, I did want to mention Lan and Rain as well, because Lan and Rain basically get a really strong HP attack plus from their single ingot, which turns them into an auto farmer in a similar vein to Yuna. So if you want somebody that can give you that capability like Yuna can, just by pressing auto and then going nuts, then Lan and Rain might be somebody you may want to consider putting an ingot into. But that being said, there are lots of characters that come out that don't work unless they have 3 ingots in Chaos or Dimension's End or like high difficulty events. But there are a fair few characters out there that do work with less. So do bear that in mind, and when you're trying to figure out where to spend your ingots, because we don't get enough ingots to fully realize every weapon that we get. So just consider some of the characters that I've given in the list here that maybe you might want to invest slightly into without going too heavy. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope that it's been helpful to everybody, and I know I've used a lot of these characters in the past, so I can speak from personal experience to know that they do work with less. So let me know in the comments below if there's other characters that perhaps I didn't mention that you have invested 0 or 1 ingot into and found to be extremely useful, or let me know in the comments below what other videos like this you would like to see in the future. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click on that bell for notifications. And of course, stay tuned for Twitch, and I shall be posting my weekly schedule up on YouTube, Twitter, Discord, all that good stuff, so that you guys can come and find me and ask me questions about the videos I make live on Twitch. Anyways, that's going to be it from me. Thank you ever so much for joining me once again, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.